Mr. Hancock, thank you very much for joining us. I'll talk to you about Partygate in just a minute, but I know that you are working today talking about special educational needs and disabilities, helping children in schools. And what you're implementing or trying to implement today is the subject of a long-delayed review, and now it's subject to 13 weeks consultation with parents. Talk to me about what you're doing and the criticism levelled at you that there's still a lack of urgency in this area.
Well, it's not. I don't think the criticism's levelled at me personally at this time because I'm not in government. What I'm doing is campaigning for people who are dyslexic like me or have other special educational needs to make sure that we get early identification and then the support that people need. And that is absolutely at the core of this paper that's been published today. I think, you know, that to get this published within 6 months of becoming the Secretary of State shows how committed Nadhim Zahawi is to this agenda. And it is a system that is long overdue reform because identification often comes far, far too late and has done for decades. You know, in my case, at university, and I hear that story over and over and over again from people, and we need to make sure that identification is earlier. We also need to make sure the government get the details right, and so I do think consultation is really important in this area because the details are so complicated. There are so many different forms of special educational need, if you like, from a whole spectrum. That making sure that those details are right is important. I think frankly, if the government had published this and said we're not going to consult, this is the answer, there would have been even more of a hullabaloo about that. So, you know, the fact that the criticism is over the timing of the consultation, I think demonstrates that people support the direction of travel, support the work the government's trying to do. I'm really pleased with this paper. It's not the answer, but it's the direction we need to go, and it gives a clear route map to reforming a system that's long overdue reform. Yeah,
as you said, important to get the details right in this area. Mr. Hancock, thank you for coming on today because you will be well aware that one of our top stories is about those fixed penalty notices handed out to government staff members for parties at Downing Street and Whitehall. This is a clear sign that the law was broken.
Well, we haven't seen that yet from the Met Police, have we? We haven't heard the news of whether those have been issued. We've just been told that they will be.
They only issue fixed penalty notices if COVID laws were broken.
Well, the PM has apologised, and you know the question that we've got that faces us today is, do we want to change Prime Minister in the middle of a war?
I haven't even got onto that question.
The Prime Minister is not only providing
Hang on a second,
leadership.
I haven't even got onto that question yet. I know we're
I
getting
know
over
that
all
it's
ground.
coming, though. I know that it's coming.
No, I know, but let's not prejudge things. Let's not prejudge things. I just want to go through this because, you know, we are going over old ground. But what I'm talking about is fixed penalty notices are issued when a law has been broken. But what we're struggling with today is that Number 10 and nobody from the Conservatives will actually come out and hold your hands up and go, the Met Police have found us guilty of breaking the law. Why not?
Well, I haven't seen that because I haven't seen that detail yet, and the Met haven't published that.
They've said that they'll be issuing 20 fixed penalty notices.
But they haven't given any detail, and I'm certainly not privy to it. But the Number 10 team have said that if the Prime Minister is issued with such a notice, then they will make that public. And
OK, then he will have been found to break the law, is that correct?
Well, the thing is that, you know, this issue has been gone over a huge amount. I understand, of course I understand, the concern, the frustration and the emotions that people have when faced with this sort of allegation.
Well, let's give them straight answers then. If a fixed penalty notice is issued, that is an indication of breaking the law. So if the Prime Minister gets one of those, he has broken the law. Is that correct?
Well, it depends what happens. But the real question, OK, is where do we go from here? And the Prime Minister has apologised. he understands, and I certainly understand, the anger and frustration that people feel about this issue. But the real question that we've got, and this is why I addressed this, in my first response to your question, the real question we've got is, what do we do about it now, okay? And what we do about it now is we need to move forward. Thankfully, we're one of the first countries in the world out of COVID restrictions, in large part down to the speed of the vaccination rollout, which we delivered here faster than any other major
I get that,
country.
but the question is, you're saying
and
what happens...
down to the PM's judgments.
Yeah,
and
okay,
then we've got
but
to move
what happens
forward.
now? I mean, it's almost like you're glossing over it in terms of if the Prime Minister is found to have broken the law, and, those people at Downing Street parties and Whitehall parties have been found to break the law, otherwise they wouldn't be issued with fixed penalty notices. If laws have been broken, and if the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying, and I quote here back in December to Sir Keir Starmer, all guidance was completely followed in number 10. He repeatedly assured the House there were no parties. So if he misled Parliament, lying in the words of Labour, are we just to pretend there are no consequences to those actions? And we just move on?
The Prime Minister's apologised, but it is really important, when you're, as an MP, as a representative of my constituents, once the Prime Minister has apologised, the idea that that he should have to resign following something like this, that question has to take into account everything that's going on. Because this isn't the only subject. It is an important subject. Of course it is. And we've just been talking about another important subject. And then there's some huge subjects facing the country, like the war. And then there's the economic situation as well.
I do get that,
and
but that will really upset people watching because, yes, of course, there are other things going on. But to those people we saw at that memorial in central London today, at the memorial wall opposite where you're standing now, you can see it from the House of Parliament. To those people, it really does matter. And, in their eyes, if the Prime Minister broke the law and lied, he should face consequences. An apology doesn't cut it. You can't just confuse it with the war in Ukraine, the Brexit issue. You can't confuse it with all of that.
I'm not confusing anything. I'm being really clear, which is that the question of who should be Prime Minister has to take everything into account. And he has apologised for this. He's made changes in the number 10 operation. But you've got to ask the question, do we want to change Prime Minister now? No. Who do we want to be leading the country when Boris Johnson is not only providing leadership to this country, frankly, he's providing leadership with colleagues and friends and allies around the world in tackling the threat of Vladimir Putin, which is a threat to us all. It's not just a threat to Ukraine, but it's a threat that undermines the safe, liberal world order that we've been living in. And so there are huge questions about how we keep ourselves safe in the years ahead, and problems that we thought, frankly, I thought had gone away. I didn't think we'd have war in Europe in my lifetime. I thought that was a 20th century thing, not a 21st century thing. And we have to address these questions as well. So I think given that the Prime Minister has apologised, it is important to look forward.
OK, Matt Hancock, former Health Secretary, thank you for speaking to us here today on Sky News, reacting to the news that the Metropolitan Police are issuing up to 20 fixed penalty notices for parties held at Downing Street and Whitehall.